What happened when an undercover CEO walked into his struggling supermarket, only to discover that the person holding everything together was a homeless cashier who had been ignored, overworked, and unfairly blamed? Hello, amazing listeners. You clearly have a taste for powerful stories, and today's one is packed with heart, truth, and justice. This isn't just about shelves and sales. It's about quiet strength, failed systems, and the kind of leadership that steps up when it matters most. So sit back and enjoy this unforgettable journey where one woman's grit changes everything and one CEO finally sees what truly matters. Daniel Reyes stared at the quarterly reports spread across his desk, each line of red ink confirming what he already knew. The Oak Ridge branch of Fresh Market Superstore was in freefall. Once a flagship location known for its high sales and strong community presence, the store had seen a 38% drop in profits over the last 3 months. Customer complaints had surged, ranging from spoiled produce and empty shelves to allegations of rude staff and slow service. But what puzzled Daniel most was that internal audits showed nothing obviously wrong. On paper, inventory matched, payroll was average, and no major incidents had been reported. His executive team insisted it was a management issue. Replace the store manager and move on, they said. But Daniel wasn't convinced. Something about the numbers didn't sit right with him. As CEO of the fresh market chain, he had built the company from a handful of family-owned stores to over 100 thriving locations across the region. He believed in systems, yes, but more than that, he believed in people. And he knew that sometimes the truth never made it into a spreadsheet. So, against his team's advice, Daniel made a decision that would change everything. He would go undercover. Strip off the suit and step onto the floor, not as the CEO, but as a new stock clerk named Dan. He wanted to see the real story, hear the unfiltered voices of the staff, and observe the day-to-day reality behind the front-end smiles. He chose Oak Ridge specifically because of the sharp contrast. The exterior looked immaculate, newly painted with vibrant green and white signage. The parking lot was always full. But behind the scenes, something was clearly broken. Daniel had one goal: figure out what, and he'd do it the old-fashioned way, by getting his hands dirty, lifting boxes, sweeping aisles, and blending in with the people who knew the store best. He packed a duffel bag with plain clothes, left his company badge in his office drawer, and reminded himself this time he wasn't the boss. He was just Dan, a guy looking for a fresh start in the grocery business. Daniel arrived at the Oak Ridge Fresh Market branch just after 6:30 IEMM, dressed in faded jeans, a plain gray hoodie, and a name tag that simply read Dan. The moment he stepped through the employee entrance, the energy, or lack of it, hit him like a wall. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a pale glare over the stockroom where a few employees moved sluggishly, barely acknowledging his presence. No one greeted him, no one offered direction. After standing awkwardly near the time clock, he finally approached a teenage employee unloading a pallet of canned goods. "Hey, I'm Dan, the new stock clerk. I was told to check in with Jenna." The teen didn't even look up. "Good luck with that," he muttered, shoving boxes into a cart. Before Daniel could ask what he meant, a sharp voice cut through the room. "Why are there still empty milk crates in the produce aisle? And who restocked the bread display with expired inventory?" A woman with dark auburn hair pulled into a tight ponytail strode into view, a clipboard in one hand and a wireless earpiece in the other. She barked orders like a drill sergeant while simultaneously checking inventory and responding to a crackling walkie-talkie clipped to her belt. This, Daniel realized, had to be Jenna Carter. She looked about 32, her face drawn with exhaustion, her movements razor-sharp with purpose. When Daniel introduced himself, she barely gave him a glance. "Another new hire? Fantastic. Put on a vest from the back, grab a scanner gun, and start shelving the dairy section. We're down 3 people and already behind." He hesitated, unsure. "Shouldn't I shadow someone first?" Jenna scoffed. "No time for babysitting. You've got 2 hands, use them." The rest of the shift was a crash course in controlled chaos. The store was understaffed, disorganized, and operating on fumes. Daniel mixed up SKUs twice, got snapped at by a cashier for blocking the aisle, and was nearly run over by a pallet jack. Every time he saw Jenna, she was putting out another metaphorical fire, fixing a pricing glitch, fielding a customer complaint, and dealing with a broken freezer. All while barking out commands with military precision. She didn't smile once. By noon, Daniel's back ached, his shirt clung to his skin with sweat, and he realized just how deep the cracks ran in this picture-perfect storefront. This wasn't just poor management, it was survival mode, and Jenna seemed to be the only one keeping the whole operation from collapsing. As the week progressed, Daniel settled into his role as Dan, blending in just enough to observe the unfiltered dynamics of the Oak Ridge store. What he saw confirmed his suspicions, and then some. Jenna wasn't just a floor supervisor or senior cashier, she was running the store in every way that mattered. From the moment the automatic doors opened at 7:00 a.m., she was everywhere, coaching a new cashier through the register system, helping the bakery staff navigate a broken mixer, even jumping on a call with a frustrated supplier when the assistant manager didn't show up. In contrast, the actual store manager, Matt Landry, strolled in around 10:45 a.m. with a designer coffee in hand and barely made eye contact with anyone. Tricia and Wen, his assistant manager, followed shortly after, laughing at his jokes and disappearing into the office for hours. Meanwhile, Jenna fielded complaints from customers about empty shelves and expired items, issuing polite apologies while directing staff to clean up messes that should have been handled during the night shift. Daniel noticed something else too, an unspoken division among the team. When Matt and Tricia were on the floor, employees grew tense, avoided eye contact, and kept conversations minimal. But when they disappeared into the back office, the atmosphere loosened and people seemed to gravitate toward Jenna for help and leadership. She was rough around the edges, yes, but staff respected her. Even the grumpiest overnight stalkers didn't argue when she gave instructions. During lunch breaks, Daniel quietly asked a few employees about their experiences. A part-time janitor named Luis shook his head and muttered, "This place would have shut down a year ago if it weren't for Jenna." Others echoed similar sentiments. One cashier, Lena, said Jenna was the only one who trained her properly. "Matt said just follow the handbook," she whispered. "But Jenna actually showed me how to handle angry customers and what to do when the scanner freezes." The more Daniel watched, the more a pattern emerged. Jenna was compensating for management's complete absence, holding the store together with sheer grit, and underneath her no-nonsense attitude he saw signs of something deeper: burnout, isolation, and a fierce loyalty to a place that had given her very little in return. The numbers in the reports had failed to capture this, but Daniel was seeing it now, raw and undeniable. One evening after closing, as Daniel was wiping down shelves near the frozen foods section, he noticed Jenna tucking a few bruised apples and a damaged box of granola bars into her oversized tote bag. She did it quickly, glancing around as if making sure no one saw, except Daniel did. She caught his eye and held his gaze for a moment, her jaw tightening. "They were going to throw them out anyway," she muttered, then turned and walked away. Daniel said nothing, but the image lingered. Later that night, as he headed to the parking lot, he spotted her slipping into a battered old sedan parked at the far edge of the lot. Blankets were bundled across the back seat, a duffel bag in the front, and a small battery-powered fan hummed softly through a cracked window. The realization struck him hard. Jenna was living in her car. The thought kept Daniel up most of the night. The next morning, Jenna arrived late, hair hastily tied, eyes red-rimmed, and Daniel overheard a phone call as she paced near the loading dock. "Yes, I'm his daughter. How bad was the episode?" "No, don't call 911. I'll be there as soon as I can. Just try to calm him." Her voice cracked at the end, and she leaned against the wall, pressing the phone to her forehead. Daniel quietly turned away before she noticed him, a pit forming in his stomach. It wasn't just work stress. Jenna was shouldering a life full of burdens, and somehow still showing up, still keeping the store running. Throughout the day, her guard was back up, sharp commands, clipped responses, but Daniel now recognized it as armor, not arrogance. He began to notice how much she covered for others, staying late to rework schedules, personally restocking items that were skipped, checking up on team members who looked overwhelmed. Jenna wasn't just holding the store together, she was sacrificing herself to do it. And no one above her seemed to notice. The data in Daniel's quarterly report hadn't mentioned the expired food she salvaged for dinner, the dementia care calls she juggled mid-shift, or the fact that the most competent person in the building was quietly sleeping in her car in the parking lot. That was the story the spreadsheets never told. By the end of his first week, Daniel's curiosity had turned into quiet outrage. The deeper he looked, the more disturbing the cracks became. After a delivery truck dropped off inventory late one morning, Daniel offered to help unload and stumbled upon a clipboard tucked behind a stack of crates. It listed expiration dates, many already passed. When he asked the receiving clerk about it, the man shrugged. Tricia said to use it anyway. Budget cuts, she says. That evening, Daniel lingered near the office and caught Tricia pocketing a wad of cash from the register drawer, then slipping a receipt into her personal notebook, separate from the official logs. When she saw him, she smirked. Counting drop cash for the safe, she lied, clearly unconcerned that a new guy like him would question it. But Daniel now saw the full pattern emerging. Mishandled money, expired inventory passed off to customers, falsified records, and it all pointed back to Matt and Tricia. They weren't just incompetent, they were manipulating the system for their gain. Customer complaints were blamed on lazy staff. In reports to corporate, often naming Jenna directly, painting her as uncooperative and toxic. But Daniel had watched Jenna de-escalate irate shoppers with calm professionalism while Matt avoided the floor altogether. Even worse, when Daniel checked the schedule for the next week, he noticed Jenna had been assigned multiple double shifts, while Matt and Tricia gave themselves extended admin days. It was exploitation in plain sight. On a hunch, Daniel approached Ray Diaz, the produce lead, and casually asked if the mismanagement had been going on long. Ray glanced around before leaning in. Since Matt took over last year, Jenna tried reporting them twice. Nothing happened. We think Tricia's got a connection at corporate. They always bury it. Daniel's jaw tightened. He was seeing firsthand how a broken system crushed its best people. And while the corporate hierarchy stayed comfortable, someone like Jenna was carrying the weight, with no support, no recognition, and no way out. But that was about to change. Daniel wasn't just there to watch anymore. He had evidence, motive, and clarity. What was once a financial mystery had become something far more personal. The breaking point came late one Tuesday evening, long after most of the staff had clocked out. Daniel stayed behind to finish mopping near the frozen section when he heard muffled voices coming from the office. He crept closer, recognizing Matt's grating voice. Corporate's sending someone next week, he was saying. We need to get ahead of it. Tricia's reply was even more chilling. Don't worry, I've got enough dirt on Jenna to bury her. I've been tweaking reports for months, cash inconsistencies, training failures, even customer complaints she never handled. It's all in writing. Daniel froze. They weren't just mismanaging the store, they were setting Jenna up to take the fall for their crimes. She's perfect, Matt continued. No family connections, no support system. If she pushes back, we'll spin it as emotional instability. She's been living in her car for God's sake. Nobody's going to take her word over ours. They laughed, and Daniel's fists clenched. Every assumption he had about the store's downfall, every number that didn't make sense, was rooted in this calculated betrayal. They had allowed the store to decline, bleeding it dry from the inside while preparing a scapegoat for Jenna. He backed away before they noticed him, his heart pounding with rage and disbelief. As he left the building, he looked out across the dark parking lot and spotted Jenna's sedan again, motionless under the flickering streetlight. In that moment, it all crystallized. She had never stood a chance, not against management determined to destroy her for their own gain. She wasn't just overworked, she was targeted, silenced, and set up to be discarded. And worst of all, the company's systems had failed her at every step. Daniel had come to find out why a store was failing. Now he understood the real question wasn't why, but who, and the answer was clear. The people hurting this place weren't on the floor. They were hiding in the office. As Daniel stood there in the night air watching Jenna rest her forehead on her steering wheel, unaware of what was coming, he made a vow. She wouldn't take the fall, not on his watch. The next morning, the staff of Fresh Market Oak Ridge arrived expecting another chaotic shift. Instead, they found the store's main entrance flanked by 2 security officers, a suited man with a clipboard, and a familiar face, now dressed in a tailored navy blazer. Daniel Reyes was no longer Dan the stock clerk, he was the CEO, and he had come to clean the house. Whispers rippled through the crowd as he stepped forward. Good morning, he began, his voice calm but commanding. My name is Daniel Reyes, CEO of Fresh Market. For the past 2 weeks, I've been working alongside you undercover, trying to understand why this location was falling apart. Matt and Tricia had just stepped out of the office, confusion etched across their faces. "Mr. Reyes, this is unexpected," Matt stammered. "Had we known?" "That was the point," Daniel interrupted. "So you couldn't prepare a performance." He turned to the staff. "Let me be clear, this store is not failing because of frontline employees. It's failing because of corruption, mismanagement, and the exploitation of good people." He nodded to his legal counsel, who handed Matt and Tricia thick folders. "Effective immediately, Matt Landry and Tricia Wynn are terminated for embezzlement, falsifying records, harassment, and breach of company ethics." Tricia gasped. Matt turned beet red, sputtering protests. "We've got nothing to hide." "Everything's been documented," Daniel said coolly. "Inventory records, surveillance footage, altered reports, conversations, everything. And I've already spoken with HR and legal. Charges are being filed." Security stepped forward to escort them out. Tricia muttered curses under her breath while Matt's smug demeanor collapsed entirely. The staff watched in stunned silence, some with wide eyes, others with barely concealed smirks. "For the rest of you," Daniel continued, "this store will close for 2 weeks for restructuring and renovations. During that time, all employees, except former management, will continue to receive full pay." Relief broke over the crowd like a wave, but as Daniel scanned the room, he realized one key person was missing. "Where's Jenna Carter?" he asked. A cashier spoke up. "She called, said her dad had a rough night. She's running late." Daniel nodded, his gaze steady. Perfect timing. She deserves to hear what comes next in person. 20 minutes later, the glass doors whooshed open and Jenna Carter burst into the store, breathless, hair hastily tied back, uniform shirt only half buttoned. She froze at the sight of corporate suits, stunned employees, and the absence of Matt and Tricia. Her eyes darted toward Daniel, who now stood confidently near the customer service desk in a blazer, not a stock vest. Realization dawned slowly. "You're not just Dan," she said, her voice flat. "No," Daniel replied calmly. "I'm Daniel Reyes, CEO of Fresh Market." Her jaw clenched. "So, what is this, some undercover sting? Are you shutting us down?" "Actually," Daniel said, stepping closer, "Matt and Tricia have been terminated. They've been stealing from the company and using you as a scapegoat. We have the evidence. They're gone." Jenna blinked, unsure how to respond. "And the store?" "Closing for 2 weeks," Daniel continued, "for renovations and reorganization. But every staff member except former management will receive full pay during the closure." Her shoulders didn't relax. "So what now? Another out-of-touch outsider takes over and we all go back to surviving?" Daniel smiled. "That depends on whether the right person is willing to step up." He turned to a nearby folder and opened it. "Jenna Carter, you've been unofficially managing this store for months. You've trained staff, solved crises, protected customers, and supported your team under impossible conditions. It's time that work was recognized." He slid the folder toward her. "This is a formal offer for the position of store manager, with full salary, benefits, and flexible scheduling to care for your father. You'll also have hiring input for your leadership team and support from corporate to rebuild this store the way it should have been run." Jenna stared at the paper, blinking fast. The salary alone was more than double her current pay. Her hands trembled slightly as she looked up. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice quieter. "Because I failed you," Daniel replied. "The system failed you. But I've seen what leadership looks like, and it looks like you." Around them, the staff had gathered, listening in. A few started clapping. Ray gave her a thumbs up. "Say yes," someone called out. Jenna bit her lip, then slowly nodded. "All right," she said, voice steadying. "Let's rebuild this place. For real this time." 3 months later, Daniel Reyes returned to the Oak Ridge Fresh Market not as a mystery shopper, not as a CEO in disguise, but as a visitor eager to see transformation in action. The difference was immediate. The aisles were spotless, fully stocked and arranged with intention. The air no longer felt heavy with exhaustion, but alive with purpose. The cashiers greeted customers with practiced ease, the produce section gleamed under better lighting, and even the employees' uniforms looked sharper, newer, worn with pride instead of obligation. Daniel took a seat at the customer lounge area near the bakery, observing quietly. What had once been a store teetering on collapse was now thriving. Then he saw her, Jenna Carter, clipboard in hand, walking the floor with quiet authority, Gone were the dark circles and guarded scowl. In their place was a sense of calm confidence and quiet joy. She stopped to help a nervous trainee at the register, then made her way to a customer in a mobility scooter, helping her find an item on the top shelf. Every action was precise, thoughtful, and personal. Ray Diaz, now promoted to assistant manager, waved at Daniel from the back aisle, giving a thumbs up before returning to restocking. Daniel caught Jenna's eye and stood to greet her. "Mr. Reyes," she said with a small smile, "you could have called. We would have rolled out the red carpet." "I preferred the surprise," Daniel replied. "I wanted to see how things really run." Jenna gave a playful shrug. "Well, this is it. Organized chaos, only with better lighting and higher morale." She led him on a short tour of the back rooms and offices, showing off new equipment, scheduling systems, and even a staff break room that now included a quiet space and free healthy snacks. "Staff retention is at 96%, she said, gesturing toward a dashboard. Customer satisfaction went up 87% and we're already exceeding quarterly sales projections. Daniel smiled, not just at the numbers, but at Jenna herself. The tired, overburdened cashier he had met months ago had become a respected leader, a mentor, and the heart of a store that was finally beating strong again. And from what he saw, the best was still to come. As Daniel followed Jenna back to her office, formerly Matt's, now entirely reimagined, he couldn't help but feel the gravity of the transformation. The cluttered mess had become a clean, welcoming space, decorated with photos of team events, Employee of the Month plaques, and a corkboard covered with thank you notes from customers. A small framed quote on her desk caught his attention. "Leadership isn't about a title, it's about showing up." Jenna noticed his gaze and smiled. "Picked that up during my first week officially in charge. Figured I needed the reminder." She gently tapped a photo of her father, now in a proper care facility thanks to the company health benefits. "He's doing better. Recognizes me most days." "I visit every evening after closing." Daniel nodded, the warmth of her words settling in. "And the apartment?" he asked. Jenna chuckled. 5 minutes from here. It's small, but it's mine. No more car camping." She paused, then added more quietly, "I still keep a blanket in the trunk, though, just in case life decides to pull another fast one." Her humility hadn't faded, but her eyes now held something new: hope. As they returned to the sales floor, Daniel watched Jenna handle a minor scheduling conflict with grace, then guide a nervous teen cashier through a difficult customer interaction. There was no trace of the bitterness that once clung to her voice, only patience and quiet strength. Just before he left, Daniel noticed a small bulletin near the entrance. At the top was a slogan handwritten in bold marker: "We don't just work here, we take care of each other." Beneath it were photos of staff birthdays, potlucks, and team outings, a collage of connection, not just employment. As he walked through the sliding doors, Daniel looked back one last time. Jenna stood near the register, chatting with a customer, a relaxed smile on her face. The same store that had once been on the brink of collapse was now a community anchor, thanks to a leader who had once been told to get lost. And Daniel knew, with absolute certainty, that Fresh Market Oak Ridge was finally in the right hands. The story of Daniel Reyes and Jenna Carter teaches a powerful lesson about leadership, empathy, and the dangers of overlooking the people who keep an organization alive. It reminds us that real leadership isn't found behind a desk. It's built through listening, observing, and standing beside the people on the front lines. Jenna, a woman burdened by invisible struggles, was judged harshly by surface behavior, while quietly holding an entire store together. Her resilience, compassion, and work ethic went unnoticed until someone took the time to truly see her. Meanwhile, those in power abused their positions, proving that titles don't equal integrity. Daniel's decision to go undercover revealed the truth that numbers and reports often miss. It's the people, not just the profits, that define a company's success. His transformation as a leader came not from enforcing policy, but from restoring dignity, recognizing value, and empowering someone who had been cast aside. The lesson is simple but profound. When we lead with empathy and hold space for people's stories, we not only uncover hidden strengths, but also build workplaces that thrive with purpose, loyalty, and heart. Sometimes, the quietest voices are the ones worth listening to most.